before he became the iconic Captain America. Chris Evans' story began like that of any ordinary boy growing up in Boston, Massachusetts. Born on June 13, 1981, to Lisa and Robert Evans, Chris grew up in a family where love and support were plentiful. But life wasn't without its challenges. His mother, a former actress, and his father, a small business owner, introduced him early to the world of performance and storytelling. Little did anyone know that this exposure would plant the seeds for a future Hollywood star. Even as a child, Chris showed a natural flair for acting. School plays, local theater productions, and impromptu performances at home became his playground for experimentation. Yet, despite his talent, he often struggled with self-doubt. Hollywood, with its glitz and glamour, seemed worlds away from his modest upbringing. Success, he realized early on, wasn't going to be handed to him. It had to be earned, sometimes through trial, error, and relentless perseverance. During his teenage years, Chris balanced academics with his growing passion for performance. He spent countless hours rehearsing lines, studying characters, and participating in local theater, learning the subtle art of capturing emotion on stage. These early experiences taught him discipline and patience, two qualities that would become his backbone in the turbulent years ahead. Chris's early life was more than just school and acting. It was a lesson in resilience. With no big-name connections, no shortcuts, and only his determination, he began the slow climb toward his dream. The boy who once nervously read lines in front of his school classmates was now setting his sights on something much bigger, Hollywood. By the time he was a young adult, Chris had decided to fully pursue acting, embarking on auditions that were often discouraging and grueling. The path was anything but smooth. Rejection after rejection tested his resolve. But Chris's passion never wavered. He had learned that talent alone wasn't enough. Success required grit, sacrifice, and an unwavering belief in oneself. This first chapter of Chris Evans' journey paints a picture of a grounded, determined boy on the brink of chasing a dream. The struggles, the small victories, and the lessons learned during his formative years laid the foundation for what was to come. A relentless pursuit of greatness in one of the toughest industries in the world. Next, we'll dive into his first real attempts in Hollywood, the early setbacks, and the moments that began shaping him from a hopeful actor into a rising star. The harsh reality of Hollywood. Every hero's journey begins with a trial, and for Chris Evans, the first real battles were not on the silver screen, they were in audition rooms. After deciding to fully pursue acting, Chris stepped into Hollywood with nothing but ambition and a relentless drive. But the city of stars can be brutally unforgiving, and Chris quickly learned that talent alone does not open doors. His early auditions were met with rejection after rejection. Agents would politely decline, casting directors would nod and move on, and roles that seemed perfect slipped through his fingers. For a young man from Boston, the glittering world of Hollywood was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Chris recalls the nerve-wracking experience of standing in front of cameras, knowing that his dream could either come alive or be crushed in a single take. Yet, every no only fueled his determination. Chris refused to let early setbacks define him. He took small roles in television shows and indie films, each one an opportunity to hone his craft. Shows like Opposite Sex and appearances in short films became his training ground, teaching him the nuances of on-screen acting camera presence and the subtle art of making characters believable. During this period, the struggle was as much mental as it was professional. Hollywood was full of talented hopefuls, and it was easy to feel lost in the crowd. Loneliness, self-doubt, and the pressure to succeed loomed large. But Chris's perseverance stood out. He began to understand that survival in this world meant embracing every experience, no matter how small, and constantly learning from it. It was in these formative years that Chris built the foundation of his resilience. He faced the reality that fame would not arrive overnight and that every setback was a stepping stone rather than a roadblock. From coffee runs on sets to waiting tables between auditions, every moment added to his growing resolve. These first battles of Hollywood were crucial. They shaped Chris Evans into more than just a talented actor. They molded him into a fighter, someone who could face rejection with patience and transform every minor opportunity into a lesson. The struggles of these years would later become the backbone of the confidence and depth he brought to his breakthrough roles. Next, we'll explore the moment that began changing his fate, when the first major opportunities appeared, hinting that the boy from Boston might just make it big in Hollywood. Breaking through, the first taste of stardom. After years of grueling auditions, small roles, and endless rejection, Chris Evans finally began to glimpse what many actors spend a lifetime chasing: recognition. The turning point wasn't instantaneous, but it arrived steadily, like the first rays of sunlight after a long, stormy night. It came in the form of small but significant roles in television shows and indie films, which allowed him to showcase his talent on a larger stage. One of his early breakthroughs was the TV series Opposite Sex, where Chris demonstrated a depth and charisma that started to turn heads. Though the show had a limited run, it gave him crucial experience in front of the camera and helped him build connections in the industry. Every line delivered, every scene acted, was a lesson in precision, patience, and persistence. It was here that Chris learned a key truth: Hollywood rewards not just talent, but consistency and professionalism. Soon after, Chris landed roles in movies like Not Another Teen Movie and The Perfect Score. These weren't blockbuster hits, but they were stepping stones, allowing him to prove he could carry characters with charm, wit, and subtle intensity. Each role, no matter how small, was a test of endurance: long hours, multiple takes, and the constant pressure of living up to expectations. Yet, Chris embraced it all, understanding that even minor successes were building blocks towards something far greater. But the journey was far from smooth. The Hollywood machine is relentless, and Chris often found himself balancing hope with frustration. There were moments of doubt when rejection letters piled up, or when a promising role went to someone else. Yet, in every setback, Chris saw an opportunity to grow. He trained harder, honed his craft, and prepared for the roles that would demand more than just acting. They would demand heart. This phase of his career also revealed another side of Chris Evans: his humility and work ethic. Unlike many newcomers, he never let early recognition cloud his focus. Instead, he used it as motivation, pushing himself to explore new genres, take on challenging roles, and build a reputation as a versatile actor. By the end of this stage, Chris had taken his first significant steps from hopeful actor to emerging star. The foundation was laid, but the real test was yet to come. Hollywood had noticed him, But true stardom, the kind that lasts, would require him to step into the spotlight in a way that would define his career. Next, we'll dive into part 4, where Chris lands his first major blockbuster roles and faces the pressures of rising fame. Rising tide, first blockbuster battles. Every actor dreams of that defining role, the one that catapults them from recognition to true stardom. For Chris Evans, the first taste of blockbuster life arrived in the mid-2000s, a period that would test both his talent and resilience. After years of indie films and minor TV roles, he stepped into projects that reached audiences on a national and eventually international scale. But with bigger roles came bigger pressures, and Hollywood's expectations were merciless. One of his early significant breakthroughs was Fantastic Four 2005, where Chris took on the role of Johnny Storm, also known as the Human Torch. It was his first major superhero role, and suddenly he was no longer just another actor auditioning for parts. He was part of a franchise with massive fan expectations and a global audience. The role demanded not just acting, but charisma, physical agility, and the ability to carry a high-energy, larger-than-life character convincingly. Preparation for the role was intense. Chris trained rigorously, both physically and mentally, pushing his body to achieve the athleticism required for a superhero. He studied the comic book lore, understood fan expectations, and worked tirelessly to embody Johnny Storm's mix of humor, arrogance, and heart. Every day on set was a lesson in perseverance, focus, and handling the scrutiny that comes with stepping into a beloved character. Yet, this period wasn't just about glitz and cameras, it was a crash course in the realities of fame. Chris began to experience the relentless spotlight of Hollywood, interviews, fan events, and media scrutiny that followed his every move. The challenge wasn't only performing well on set, it was maintaining balance, staying grounded, and not letting external pressures shake his confidence. Even with the success of Fantastic Four, the journey wasn't free from criticism. Mixed reviews tested his resilience, forcing him to confront the reality that not every role or every movie would be universally praised. But Chris's response was a testament to his character. He focused on improvement, using feedback as fuel, never letting setbacks deter his determination. This stage marked the transition from promising actor to emerging Hollywood star. Chris had tasted the intensity of blockbuster life, learned the discipline required for high-profile roles, and realized that rising fame brought both opportunities and formidable challenges. Next, we'll explore Part 5, where Chris faces personal and professional crossroads, and the choices he makes begin to define his path toward becoming a true hero in Hollywood. Choices that define a star. By the late 2000s, Chris Evans had earned recognition, but he faced a critical challenge every actor encounters: the crossroads of career choices. After his early blockbuster successes, including the Fantastic Four films, he was at a pivotal point. Should he continue riding the superhero wave, or take risks with roles that demanded depth, nuance, and emotional vulnerability? These decisions would shape not just his career, but the kind of actor he aspired to be. Hollywood, with all its glamour, can be unforgiving. Typecasting loomed as a real threat. Chris knew that repeatedly playing charming, action-oriented characters could limit his artistic growth. He wanted more roles that tested him, stretched him, and allowed him to prove that he was not just a pretty face in a cape. This period required self-reflection, courage, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. He began exploring diverse projects, films like Sunshine and Scott Pilgrim vs. The World were bold choices, straying from the typical blockbuster mold. These roles challenged him creatively, exposing him to new genres, complex characters, and unconventional storytelling. Every scene demanded focus, every take tested his emotional range, and every project reminded him that success was about versatility as much as visibility. At the same time, Chris faced personal struggles common to actors under constant scrutiny. Long hours, physical demands, and the pressure of public perception. Fame, he realized, came with isolation and self-doubt. Yet, these challenges became opportunities for growth. He honed discipline in his craft, maintained humility amidst rising fame, and built a work ethic that would later define his legendary dedication to major roles. This period also revealed Chris's strategic mindset. He didn't just act, he evaluated scripts, directors, and co-stars with precision, knowing that each choice could either propel him forward or stall his trajectory. The decisions he made during this phase weren't just about the present, they were investments in a long-term career. By navigating these crossroads wisely, Chris Evans began transforming from a rising actor into a serious, respected talent. He was laying the foundation for the role that would eventually immortalize him. Captain America. This stage of his journey underscored a vital lesson: true heroes aren't defined solely by talent, but by the choices they make when facing uncertainty. Next, in Part 6, we'll see how Chris landed the role that changed everything and how stepping into the Marvel Universe tested him like never before. Becoming the Shield, entering the Marvel Universe. Every actor dreams of a role that defines their career, and for Chris Evans, that moment arrived in 2010 when he was cast as Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. It wasn't just a role, it was a transformation, a responsibility, and the beginning of an era that would catapult him to global stardom. But stepping into the Marvel Universe wasn't easy. It demanded physical, emotional, and mental metamorphosis. Before filming began, Chris committed himself fully to becoming Captain America. He underwent intense physical training, sculpting his body to match the iconic superhero's image while also ensuring the strength, stamina, and agility required for high-octane action sequences. Diets, workouts, and grueling routines became his daily life. Yet, it wasn't only about muscle. He had to embody the character's heart, courage, and unwavering moral compass. Chris knew fans expected more than just a physique. They wanted the real essence of Steve Rogers. The audition process itself had been intense. Directors needed someone who could carry the weight of a franchise, someone who could balance charm, determination, vulnerability, and leadership. Chris's prior experiences, the struggles, the indie films, the blockbuster trials all converged to prepare him for this moment. His dedication, professionalism, and emotional depth made him the perfect choice. But with great opportunity came enormous pressure. The Marvel Cinematic Universe was already building anticipation, and fans had high expectations. Every scene, every line of dialogue, every punch thrown on screen would be scrutinized. Chris faced the challenge head-on, blending discipline with passion and channeling both his personal and professional experiences into his portrayal. This role also tested him personally. Fame escalated exponentially, media attention intensified, and the global spotlight became relentless. Yet, Chris remained grounded, guided by his humility and a strong sense of purpose. Behind the shield, he became a symbol not just of heroism on screen, but of dedication, resilience, and authenticity off-screen. Becoming Captain America wasn't just a career milestone. It was a turning point that would define Chris Evans as an actor and as a public figure. The world began to recognize him not only for his talent, but for the integrity and commitment he brought to every performance. Next, in Part 7, we'll explore the explosive success of the Marvel franchise, the pressures of global fame, and how Chris balanced stardom with personal growth. The global spotlight, fame, pressure, and perseverance. Once Chris Evans donned the iconic red, white, and blue of Captain America, his life changed overnight. The Marvel Cinematic Universe wasn't just a series of films, it was a phenomenon. And Chris had become its symbol of heroism. But with global recognition came pressures that tested him in ways no audition or indie film ever could. Suddenly, Chris was not just an actor, he was a role model, a public figure, and the face of a billion-dollar franchise. Interviews, fan conventions, and media scrutiny became part of his daily life. Every word he spoke, every action he took was amplified, analyzed, and critiqued by millions. For someone who had once struggled to get noticed, this was both exhilarating and overwhelming. On set, the stakes were equally high. The physical demands of filming blockbuster action sequences pushed Chris to his limits. Hours of stunt training, fight choreography, and high-intensity shooting schedules required not only strength but unwavering focus and discipline. Beyond the physical, he needed to convey the emotional depth of Steve Rogers, the moral integrity, vulnerability, and leadership that made Captain America beloved worldwide. Fans expected authenticity, and Chris delivered with dedication. Despite the glamour, this period wasn't without personal challenges. Fame brought isolation at times, as private moments became rare and public scrutiny constant. Chris learned to navigate the delicate balance between public life and personal well-being. He developed routines to stay grounded, time with family, quiet moments off-set, and a focus on the craft rather than the chaos of celebrity. Yet, through the pressure, Chris thrived. He embraced the responsibility of inspiring fans, using his platform to promote positivity, humility, and perseverance. The lessons from his early career, the rejection, the indie struggles, the small victories became his armor, helping him handle fame with grace. By the end of this phase, Chris Evans had transformed from a hopeful actor into a global superstar. But the journey wasn't just about fame. It was about sustaining authenticity amid the chaos. He had proven that talent, discipline, and resilience could carry someone through the harshest spotlight, while still staying true to themselves. Next, in Part 8, we'll explore Chris's evolution beyond Captain America, the risks he took to avoid typecasting, his creative reinvention, and how he cemented his legacy as a versatile Hollywood actor. Reinvention beyond the shield. By the time the Marvel films had solidified Chris Evans' place in Hollywood, he faced a new challenge, avoiding typecasting. The world knew him as Captain America, the ultimate superhero. But Chris was determined to prove that his talent extended far beyond the red, white, and blue suit. Reinvention became his mission, a conscious effort to expand his craft and explore diverse characters. Chris began taking on projects that were dramatically different from the superhero genre. Films like Gifted, Knives Out, and Scott Pilgrim vs. The World allowed him to experiment with complex, layered characters, each requiring emotional nuance and a depth not demanded by blockbuster action roles. These roles were deliberate choices, risks that many actors might avoid, but Chris understood that evolution was essential for longevity in the industry. Behind the scenes, this reinvention required intense preparation. Unlike Captain America, where physicality played a dominant role, these characters demanded internal exploration. Chris spent hours studying motivations, perfecting dialogue, and collaborating closely with directors to bring authenticity to every role. It wasn't about fame anymore. It was about craft, legacy, and personal fulfillment. This phase also highlighted Chris' strategic mindset. He consciously selected scripts that challenged him, often choosing roles that forced him to step out of his comfort zone. At the same time, he embraced independent films, understanding that these projects allowed for greater creative freedom and opportunities to display versatility. It was a balancing act, maintaining his superhero fan base while reinventing himself as a serious, multifaceted actor. Beyond the professional, Chris' reinvention extended to his personal life. He became more selective about public appearances, focusing on meaningful interactions and charitable work rather than constant media exposure. He cultivated humility, stayed grounded, and ensured that his identity remained intact despite global fame. This stage of his journey was pivotal. By taking risks and exploring new avenues, Chris Evans proved that he was more than a single role or franchise. He demonstrated adaptability, resilience, and a commitment to growth, securing his place as one of Hollywood's most respected actors. Next, in Part 9, we'll explore Chris Evans' contributions off-screen, his advocacy, personal projects, and the ways he used his platform to inspire and give back to society. Beyond the camera, advocacy, and impact. By now, Chris Evans wasn't just a household name. He had become a figure whose influence extended far beyond the silver screen. As Captain America, he inspired millions. But Chris wanted to ensure his legacy wasn't confined to fictional heroics. Off-screen, he began using his platform to advocate for issues close to his heart, proving that real heroism lies in action, compassion, and courage. Chris has consistently been outspoken on matters of social justice, politics, and equality, using his voice to encourage awareness and change. He recognized the responsibility that comes with fame and didn't shy away from difficult conversations. Whether addressing voter engagement, mental health, or civic responsibility, Chris leveraged his visibility to make an impact, inspiring fans to engage thoughtfully with the world around them. Beyond advocacy, Chris also ventured into personal projects that reflected his creativity and curiosity. He explored directing, production, and storytelling, understanding that expanding his skill set would allow him to contribute to the industry in new ways. His directorial debut with Before We Go showcased not only his talent behind the camera, but also his commitment to exploring intimate, human stories beyond the spectacle of blockbuster fame. Philanthropy became another cornerstone of his journey. Chris quietly supported causes, charities, and initiatives, often without seeking public recognition. From helping veterans to supporting educational programs and mental health initiatives, he demonstrated that heroism doesn't always require a costume. It can be found in consistent, meaningful action. This stage of his life also highlighted the importance of balance. Despite the pressures of fame, the constant spotlight, and the expectations of millions, Chris maintained humility and groundedness. He prioritized personal relationships, time with family, and self-reflection, proving that even those in the global spotlight must nurture their inner lives to remain effective, authentic, and healthy. Chris Evans' off-screen journey reinforced a powerful truth. Success is not just measured by box office numbers or awards, but by the impact you have on others and the legacy you leave behind. By combining his craft with advocacy, creativity, and compassion, Chris solidified his status not just as a superstar, but as a true role model for generations of fans worldwide. Next, in Part 10, we'll conclude his journey reflecting on the full arc from a struggling Boston kid to global icon, and the lessons his story leaves for anyone chasing dreams. Legacy. From Boston dreams to global icon, Chris Evans' journey from a determined kid in Boston to one of Hollywood's most respected and beloved actors is a story of resilience, passion, and unwavering commitment. Every rejection, every small role, every late-night audition and grueling shoot contributed to the making of the actor and the man we see today. His path wasn't easy, but it was deliberate, a careful blend of talent, hard work, and strategic choices. From his early struggles in indie films and television, Chris learned the value of patience and perseverance. He understood that fame was fleeting, but mastery of craft and integrity were lasting. Each step, from small TV appearances to blockbuster hits, was a building block toward his ultimate destiny. The journey wasn't just professional, it shaped him personally, teaching humility, resilience, and the importance of staying grounded despite extraordinary success. Becoming Captain America was more than a career milestone. It was a turning point that tested him physically, emotionally, and mentally. The role required a dedication unlike anything he had experienced, and Chris rose to the challenge, becoming the embodiment of heroism both on and off screen. Yet, he never allowed the mantle to define him entirely. Through careful reinvention and choice of diverse roles, Chris proved that he was more than a single character. He was a versatile actor capable of depth, nuance, and storytelling that resonates with audiences worldwide. Beyond acting, Chris Evans' story is one of purpose and impact. He leveraged fame to advocate for social justice, civic responsibility, and mental health awareness, while also quietly supporting charities and personal projects. His legacy is not just the roles he played, but the example he set. That true success combines professional excellence with compassion, authenticity, and a commitment to making a positive difference. Ultimately, Chris Evans' journey is a testament to the idea that zero to hero stories are not about overnight fame. They are about consistent effort, learning from failures, embracing challenges, and staying true to oneself. From a passionate Boston kid with a dream to a global icon and role model, his story inspires anyone chasing their ambitions, reminding us that with grit, perseverance, and heart, ordinary beginnings can lead to extraordinary destinies. Chris Evans' life proves that real heroes exist, not just on the screen, but in the choices we make, the risks we take, and the courage we show to stay